Hello, everybody. Good evening, good evening, good evening. So, I just wanted to jump on a couple minutes early. It's 6:55 p.m. here on the East Coast on a Wednesday night. It's the 24th day of July, 2024. And just like that, it seems like someone had switched off the extreme heat. Now it's just kind of like warm and muggy. I wish it was extremely hot again. I was never complaining about it. I was just reporting the weather, by the way. I was never complaining. I was just reporting about what was going on. A little bit less humidity is fine. But that's how we're faring over here. And we've got a great one for you. It's going to be an odd one for me because I did something today that happens maybe once or twice a year, if that. And that is I had to do a pre-recorded interview with our guests tonight who are from the UK. Very well known, especially to some portions of the audience. And for all you youngins, you're about to get learned. And that's what we're going to be talking about in a little bit. I spoke with Right Said Fred today, with Fred and Richard. It was a great time. It was, and honestly, it was pretty surreal because just never thought, always looking for interesting guests. And this one just kind of, I never even knew this was the interview I was looking for until I realized that they followed me. Talk about that in just a second because I'll be able to queue that up. It's about an hour long and it really is awesome. And I'll just be able to hang out with you guys in the chat room, watch a little bit, and be a spectator. Now, I know there's a few other things going on at the moment. I think at 6 o'clock p.m. there was a Trump rally that started, so I understand there might be some people peeking in on that, but it'll be there when you're done. And then and here's the other thing. I know that everybody's like, well, Frank, an hour long, we got the Biden is going to tap out officially at a 8 o'clock address. I know about the 8 o'clock address of Biden, which is why we're going to start this interview at like 7:15 as soon as we're at the other side of the intro. Because when it's done and we come back, I'm going to have the White House stream ready to go. We will just slide right to the beginning of it and we'll watch it together. You won't miss a thing. I promise it. I promise you're just going to watch it like maybe 15, 20 minutes later than everybody else who actually gave a shit to watch it live. And we'll do that together. It'll all be in this episode. So, yeah, pretty nice fitting. It's a nice fitting episode. Everything will come together and it'll be relevant too, because, when I was talking with the Freds, I wanted to start off with music, and that was my intention. So let's just talk about music and culture, and then we'll get into just the world and geopolitics and all that, because there's a lot there that I'll set up in just a little bit. But they went right into it, and we talked about everything. And I think that whatever the hell happens in the White House tonight will be relevant in some way to what I discussed with Right Said Fred today, around 1 o'clock Eastern time. So thank you so much. Tomorrow night's show is going to be awesome too. It's going to feature Christy Laura Grace, who is a former biotech manager, and she's on to talk about the ins and outs and some of the more scary, underreported aspects of the bioweapons that have been, been distributed over the last few years. There's that. I believe it's Fleckus Friday on the 26th. And then at some point this weekend, I have to go and see Twisters so I can bring back Hunter Fowkes and have a Storm Chaser conversation, a follow-up that I said I was going to have with him when he was on earlier on in the spring. I want to know what he thought about that. And not only that, but I think Hunter, one of our friends in the audience out there, Miguel, who's in the Navy, and he's stationed somewhere that I can't know about, on a boat that I can't know about. But I think when they were back stateside or something, Hunter Fowkes went over there to talk about storm systems and things like that. He actually got to address at least one military member, frankly. And I said, so Miguel wrote into me. I said, hey, did you drop my name? He goes, no, I didn't even think about that. I said, well, next time. So maybe I can drop Miguel's name to Hunter next time he comes on to talk about Twisters, the sequel to the movie that changed all of our lives. I also have to see Deadpool at some point too, and there you go. I'll just keep looking through the schedule over there at the Alamo Draft House. All right, that's all I have for you right now. Let's jump into the grab bag, the first one up, is this. Did you know, I mean, people have been thankfully paying attention to all the chat summaries, the AI-generated chat summaries that have been out there. Well, listen to this one. This one was sent in by one of the video editors for, quite frankly, Danny, Al Gorbachev. Gorbachev sent me this one. This is from last night, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what the hell we were talking about, but I don't think it was this. Here's the chat summary that YouTube generated. Viewers are reacting to Frank's sexual orientation being discussed. What? What am I? What is that? I'm trying to even think what the hell that even is. I don't. So that's weird. That's strange. Viewers are reacting to Frank's sexual orientation being discussed while others mention a deceased pet dog, sharing memories and discussing conspiracy theories about America and Canada. What the hell were you guys doing in the chat the other night? What the hell were you doing? So that's what the YouTube thing has generated for us. And thank you, Danny, for catching that, because that was absolutely ridiculous. All right, here's another one for you. I'm sure it's going to make everybody squirm. Headline: Doctors remove a 16-inch lauki from a man's rectum after 2-hour operation in Madhya Pradesh. Doctors perform an x-ray on a man who complained of severe stomach ache and discovered the lauki lodged in his rectum. You want to see what it is? It's this. They look like gigantic zucchini. I don't know what the hell it is, but they're big and they look like zucchini. Over the years, the extraction of objects from bodily orifices has become increasingly common among doctors worldwide. I know we do a report at the end of every year, usually the last show of the year, because all the hospitals, they report all the different things from the ERs that they remove from people's bodies. Nonetheless, the tales of foreign object removal still come as a surprise or shock. A man in Madhya Pradesh recently made headlines for the same reason after the doctors reportedly removed a bottle gourd from his rectum. According to the Times of India, the 60-year-old farmer came to the doctors with a complaint about severe stomachache. The medical professionals performed an x-ray, which revealed the presence of a bottle gourd in his rectum. It is, however, unclear how the vegetable ended up in his rectum. Also, the man didn't provide any clarification. You know, the long and short of it is that they took it out and he's healing just fine. That's what the article concluded. But it's not lost on me how disturbing and twisted this is. That's a given. That's a given. But think about the determination. Think about how determined you need to be to jam this thing up your ass. I mean, that takes a hell of a lot of determination. He needed to really want this. I don't know. I don't know what to say anymore. I wish this was the worst news. I wish this was the worst of the news we read every night. That actually made me feel like, normalcy. Here's a headline for you, as everybody's still trying to grapple with how they're going to push the whole Kamala Harris thing, as if it's a strategic advantage of some way, shape, or form. Well, the schizophrenics are out in the media once again. Here it is, a headline from NBC News. Dumb and DEI candidate. Trump and allies attack Kamala Harris based on her race and gender. Well, I mean, then why was she picked? In 2016, Trump accused Hillary Clinton of playing the woman card. Now he's accused Harris of playing the race card. When President Joe Biden announced he was dropping his reelection. But I mean, the whole thing is it her polling? Is that why she was even VP, let alone now being pushed into the big seat? Is it her polling? No. Is it her accomplishments? No. Before or after the vice presidency? You know, that they're trying to scrub the fact that she was made border czar, that it was announced. It's on video. I mean, remember we were talking about this. The fact that they tried to deny it ever happened, because to accept that it happened and she was named border czar would mean that she made very, very big mistakes down there. Namely, she just fell asleep and hoped that nobody checked her homework. So it's not her polling. It's not her accomplishments. It's definitely not her gracefulness. She doesn't have any grace. So what is it? You know, if you're attacking somebody because she's dumb and DEI, well, prove that she wasn't. Joy Reid, on the other hand, seems to think it is about race. You know, see, they can't make up their mind. On one hand, they're saying, I can't believe those Trumpsters. Those Trumpsters are going after Kamala Harris because she's DEI and dumb. And on the other hand, you have Joy Reid, who's saying black people will look really weird for not voting for Kamala Harris. Look at that weird creature. Look at that strange creature. Holy shit. I would hate to have her at the other end of a dim hallway. Start, just you can barely make out the features of her face. That's a nightmare. If Joy Reid was at the other end of a dim hallway, long, dark hallway, you could just barely see her facial features. That's nightmare fuel right there. MSNBC host Joy Reid, who ironically only has that job because she's a token hire as well, said Tuesday that black people will look really weird if they did not vote for presumptive Democratic nominee Kamala Harris in November. Given the stratospheric entrance of Vice President Kamala Harris into presidential campaign, she has now secured enough delegates to become the nominee. You're going to look really crazy being on the other side of that line, particularly as a person of color, but really as anyone who claims to have any connection to the culture. So what is it? What is it? You got to pick a side. You got to pick a side on this. But no, that would be too consistent. Because really, the real thing is, could you have put together two people that did worse things, that put more black men especially into jail than Kamala Harris and Joe Biden? Between the crime bill in the 90s that he helped push, he took really, really harsh stands all throughout the 90s and the early 2000s. And then there's Kamala Harris and all the good that she did, locking away people from marijuana and truancy and shit like that. Please. We were talking about that even before Tulsi Gabbard nailed her to a wall at the Democrat primaries. So, again, like I said, this is going to be a really obnoxious 3 months. Really obnoxious 3 months. It would be a real blessing for them to somehow lose and have to accept a 4-year stay, because the worst part, I can laugh at it, I can make the jokes, but the worst part is living around people who think that it's real. The worst part is living around people who are just like, yes, feed me the pablum. Yeah, I love Kamala Harris now. She is the woman. She is the woman of the hour. She's here at the time that she was born to be here at. This is someone who polls lower than dirt and nobody likes. She lacks all types of grace. You know, my mother was watching Greg Kelly last night, and I spoke to her a little bit before I turned in, and I said, she said, I was watching Greg Kelly. I'm so happy. I'm happy about that, by the way. She likes Greg Kelly. She stopped watching The View, and she watches Greg Kelly. I don't even watch him, but I'm happy she's watching him instead of The View. And she said, he made a really great point about Kamala Harris. He was really, she said, I looked for the clip today. I couldn't find it. She said he was really funny, too, because he did, he kind of like acted it out. But he said, can you imagine if a man walked around cackling like this, laughing like this? And then she like imitated him, imitating her, but as a man version, just like just bursting out laughing in inappropriate times, just as filler and all that shit. And I said, it's true. It's true. I mean, we spend enough time just talking about, wow, what an obnoxious laugh. But who cares if it's obnoxious or not? Can you imagine? The fact that she's been allowed to just have that be a part of her public persona. Like that's how she actually communicates with people, is to just to choke out incoherent shit through giggles. It's true. It really is true. I got to find that Greg Kelly bit. I want to see him. I want to see what she was talking about. But it's a really great point. Anyway, let's get this show started, because the earlier I start this wonderful interview, the earlier we can get around to taking your calls, listening to the Biden address, reading all your super chats, that and much more. We will be right back.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's go!
Yes. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm glad that you're here. Oh, one last thing. Here's something else I thought was hilarious. Douglas McGregor, Colonel McGregor, who I really hope I can get on the show one day, said this last night. Breaking Black Lives Matter demands open primary. Black Lives Matter urged the Democrat National Committee to promptly organize an impromptu virtual primary nationwide before the August DNC convention. This call came shortly after Vice President Kamala Harris clinched the sufficient delegates for the nomination. BLM emphasized in their statement the importance of public involvement in selecting the presidential nominee rather than relying solely on party delegates. So now they're that's funny, calling for parliamentary action here instead of just throwing Molotov cocktails. But, there's no honor among thieves, as you know, so maybe Black Lives Matter will anybody over there will start realizing who they are aligned with and who had encouraged them and enabled them for so long, and for what purpose and to what end. And you really got to start when you go into business with scoundrels like that, you really have to start wondering, when am I going to outlive my usefulness? That's what people like Volodymyr Zelensky have to start asking himself, especially around this point in time. Because he seems like he wants to wind down what's going on out there in Ukraine, at least from some statements he made over the last couple of days. And we all know what the hell's going on over here. So some people want it to go on forever, and some people are starting to say no, and that is when the immovable object, it's an unstoppable force. I think the unstoppable force is going to win in that respect. If it comes to the deep state, NATO, and everything that controls it, and Zelensky and his co-cabinet, I think I know what's going to move first. Anyway, I promise you all, we're going to be doing the Joe Biden speech as soon as we are done with our feature presentation, which is coming up right now. And so earlier this year, like I said, or late last year, I don't know what it is, I noticed that Right Said Fred had followed me on Twitter. I'm too sexy. Yes, those guys. Well, I said, what the hell? A couple of weeks ago, I'm not, whenever I see something like that, I'm not one to jump on, hey, how are you? You want to come on the show? Whatever. So I said, just chill out, but I'm going to see what this is up. So what I realized, especially that it wasn't a spam follow either, because recently, Fred and Richard have been very politically outspoken in the last few years, especially since COVID and all that, and it started making plenty of sense as to why they'd be tuned in to shows like this whenever they stumble upon us. So I took a shot at booking them a couple of weeks ago, and it resulted in a really great conversation that you are about to listen to right now. We talk about censorship, intellectual rebellion, the media, Brexit, Trump, Biden, Harris, migration, the WEF, the state of Western culture, and much more. And a lot of it, I had all my questions. I knew the things I wanted to ask, but they just wanted to jump into the into the meat and potatoes of things. And we went for it. It was a lot of fun. So after the interview ends, we'll cut to the Biden address to the nation to see if it's really him. We'll take your calls. We'll read your super chats and whatever else. In the meantime, I'll be jumping in and out of the chat with you and everything else. So without further ado, I want to leave you with my interview today with Right Said Fred. So enjoy yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back in about an hour. All right, and here I am, ladies and gentlemen, here hanging out with Fred and Richard, the Freds, Right Said Fred. What's going on, guys? It's great to be on with you.
Well, it's nice to be with you, Frank. I must say, yes, it's enjoyable.
We're in the UK, and it's pretty muggy. And
yes, it's yeah. We're sort of near Heathrow.
Yeah, it's not far.
Not far from Heathrow.
Well, we're not that far off with the weather. It's been like you need gills to breathe over here the last 4 weeks. So
where are you based?
Oh, I'm in Westchester, New York. I'm about 25 miles outside the city.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
okay.
We took Mum to New York a few years ago for her 75th birthday.
Really?
And we had I reckon 4 seasons of weather in about 5 days.
You know, is it April?
It was just amazing. Snow, rain, heat. Yeah.
If it's in April, then yeah, I can see how that would happen. Sometimes we'll get a 75-degree day in March, and then all of a sudden you're buried again.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we lived in New York for quite a while.
Yeah, we loved it
back in the day. Yeah, when it was a bit more sort of chaotic and fun.
Yeah.
Chaotic and fun. That's the difference there. There's
absolutely. The minute you put politicians between people and fun, you can lose the fun bit.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing, but and I'm sure we'll get into this a lot there too, because when you get, it's one thing to have someone like a Michael Bloomberg say, all right, nobody can have a sugary drink that's more than 12 ounces. It's another thing to start legalizing public urination. And I mean, it's just like, you know, I understand nitpicky micromanaging politicians, but the deconstruction of stable civilization is something completely different. And
it is. Also, I think it's kind of, it's just, I actually think it's just come down, it's really boring. It comes down to manners. That's all it is. And it's really boring, but that's what it is. If you don't, you know, if you think, actually, I don't want somebody to step in my poo, so I won't do it here. That's manners. That's all it is. Yeah. But I think people are so encased in their little place, wherever it is they are. They don't see anybody else. They don't think about anybody else, and they do whatever they want.
I think the term was called a high trust society. You know,
I've never heard that. Never heard that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what this is. That's what this is.
This is a hype? Is that what they're saying it is?
It's what it should. I mean, that's when we're at our best. Is when everybody,
no, absolutely,
everybody has their, you know.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. But there's no trust. I mean, what the last 4 years did with pandemic, I don't know about so much in the States, but certainly in the UK, the erosion of trust in healthcare, police, judiciary, neighbours, friends, family, TV, mainstream media, everything has lost has lost that shine.
Well, I can
that sheen rather.
Yeah, I can remember when it was first mooted over here. I don't know how long this has been happening in the States, but when it was first mooted over here in the UK, that policemen should wear cameras, and everybody thought that was a brilliant idea. Now I remember thinking that's a terrible idea. It's a really, really bad idea, because what it actually means is nobody trusts what the copper's going to say, and nobody trusts what the person talking to the copper says.
Right.
It's the camera is evidence of a complete lack of trust. So I always thought that was a really, really bad thing. But that's where we got. That's sadly where we got, where people going into shops and just taking food, theft is off the chart.
Oh yeah, that's definitely something that we share. I think every big city in Western civilization right now here too, and I wonder about that. I know you said I don't know how it is in the States. It's hard to know how it really is, because we have a lot of common enemies. You and we and you guys. We have a lot of common enemies. Chief among them is the media, especially on an international level. The way that what is going on in Europe and what is going on in the United States is delivered to the other side of the pond is completely deceptive. And a lot of this stuff is going on. And it isn't crazy that the more cameras, the more of this stuff that is introduced, it doesn't get any better. It really doesn't get any better.
It doesn't. I mean, yeah, exactly. I think, and you have to say that if it wasn't for the internet and social interaction, we would know even less.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I mean, we would know. Can you imagine? Before the First World War, kids were lining up to go to the trenches. I mean, because they were given this one image, this one kind of message that it was fighting for king and country and everything else. If you can imagine soldiers that had already been taking with them their camera and showing what it was like in the trenches, showing what it was actually like to be there, they would have had a real problem with recruitment. Absolutely.
Well, it's a bit like the recruitment now with boosters.
Yeah, people sort of
COVID boosters, which I think may have been shelved. I can't remember now. And I think it's the same thing. I mean, social media has a lot to answer for, but on the upside, it does help to combat the BS we get from mainstream media.
And also in terms of America, we in the UK, we get so much information now. If you want to find it, there is so much information about what's going on with Kamala Harris and Biden and Trump and Schumer and all these people. People we would never have heard of.
I know.
Back in the day when I was reading The Independent, and when The Independent was a good paper. So it is. I mean, I thank God for the internet and people like Elon Musk. I think it's a boon that we take it for granted, and it's got, like most things, it's got its downsides and it's got a really negative part of it. Obviously, like most things come with two sides. But I think without it, we'd be in the dark. We'd be like mushrooms, kept in the dark and fed shit.
You're right. I'm glad you guys brought that up, because I would love to start there and go through culture and music and the industry a little bit, and then come back around to where we were just really naturally kicked off. And on social media, when we talk about fame, notoriety, brand recognition, in the current day, we refer to it as, going viral. And that's really because it's built upon solely an individual person's ability to spread something through social media and circumvent what was normally the television, radio, film, magazines, touring that you guys know very well from back in the day. Do you see the changes outside of circumventing the stranglehold that the media and government, all this, had on maybe like war reporting or politics? I love the circumvention of the news, but how do you see the changes in media, net negative or net positive impacts across the entire culture at large?
I think the downside with social media is the algorithms. So if you click on a load of illegal immigration stuff or the Gaza or Israel, obviously that algorithm gets repeated and repeated. So I think you get a distorted view of what's going on. But on the upside, I think you do have people, pretty good stations and independent reporters doing good work outside the mainstream media. I mean, people like Rebel News is a good example.
Ira Levant.
And there was going back a while. Abby Martin, and there are different people doing stuff outside of the mainstream. And now I think you can have pretty good credentials, journalistic credentials, without ever stepping inside a media corporation.
I think the problem still remains that millions and millions, I don't know it's like in America, but millions and millions of people still tune into the TV expecting that they're going to get the unvarnished truth, whether it's Sky or whether it's the BBC or ITV or whoever. And the power of television is still extremely strong. We know people who are, who are not, they're bright people. I mean, they're not stupid people,
right?
But they think they're getting a broad picture if they read the Guardian and watch all the Times and watch the BBC. They don't. Do you know what I mean? It is actually quite impossible to get through to these people. That is just a tiny part of what's going on. So I think that, as I say, the media, the social media thing has got some really bad things about it. Like Fred says, the algorithms and everything else. But I think the upside is at least we have an idea of what's going on. And we were in the studio the other day with a young guy who, he can't be more than 22, 24, something like that. And he said, I know there's something going on, but I just can't face it.
So
he can't deal with it.
I can't live with the.
So what's interesting about that?
Young guy.
Yeah, that's interesting about that. He's not getting that information from the mainstream media. He's getting that information, whatever level of information he's getting it from the internet. And well, you see what's happening in Ireland. I'm sure you've heard of
Oh, yeah.
what's going on in Ireland.
Absolutely.
It's very, very scary. And I think, I still think that a lot of people found it very, very hard to admit the people that they elected knew people that hated them, and that people they elected hated them too. There's a whole bunch of people out there like Soros and Bill Gates and all these other people. They actually have no concern about ordinary people. They have no care at all. They have a dream or an illusion, whatever you want to call it. Soros obviously has a political agenda. Gates has this kind of weird dream thing going on in his head. Yeah. But I think ordinary people find it it's like discovering that your uncle is not quite what he seemed to be when you were a kid. You grew up loving him and thinking he was great, and then you find out actually that's not what he was like. And that's what I think the media is like. We've come to learn to accept it, that it was telling us the truth, and now we're thinking actually maybe it's not. Maybe it's just.
Well, I think also the last 4 years, but then because of the last 4 years, people are now looking back at the moon landing or 9/11 or JFK,
Building 7.
Yeah, Building 7, RFK. I mean, all these events.
You guys should just start hosting my show. I mean, this is every night.
Sorry.
No, seriously. This is incredible. I can't believe on how I didn't know how on the same page we were going to be. I know about your criticisms of the Ukraine war, and I've seen. We're going to get into all that stuff too. But man, oh man, and I'm going to let you. And please, Fred, go right ahead again. But I had to jump in because. Especially what you're talking about with the young kid that you were working with in the studio. Sometimes even if you can't articulate what the hell it is, there is still, no matter how much abuse we take with the gaslighting and the brainwashing, there's that human intuition, that spark in your stomach that can just sense something is off. It doesn't match up. The results don't match up. Yeah, so I get it. We're still intelligent in that way, even if we can't put words to what it is.
No. Exactly.
I mean, in the UK and other places, people still recognise us, and they sort of initially through the pandemic, we got quite a lot of abuse online. We never got any abuse face to face. One time we did in Hyde Park, but it was some guy shouting. But what's interesting now is we do get a disproportionate amount of people coming up saying, "Look, what's going on?" I mean, not like I'm not pretending to know, of course, but because they've seen us speak out or whatever you want to call it, they come up and say, "I'm really confused. This feels weird. This feels wrong," and it's quite interesting the amount of people who they're not sure what's wrong, but they know something is. They can sense it, and I think the lack of good news. I mean, when did you ever see good news?
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
It's just
the cat up the tree thing
exactly.
they used to.
And that's a good thing again about some social media is you get the dog channel or the cat channel and the reason they're so popular is because it's a bit of relief from this tsunami of gloom and doom and the level of hate some people have. I mean, there's a guy on my Facebook, and I just mentioned something about the Kamala Harris thing where she mentions depopulation, and I just
She's funny,
and I just said, look, it's front and center. And this guy came on and he said, well, I agree with depopulation. I said, okay, that's your opinion.
You first, mate.
Well, yeah, that's your opinion. That's fine. And but when other people came on and said, well, kind of criticized him, his response was, I'm going to block you, I'm going to block you. And there was no sort of, well, this is my opinion, you don't have to agree with me. That people go to this, they get very defensive very quickly. The left and right paradigms, as you say, we all have common enemies, and the left and right is there to distract us 100%. And if we all realize that actually the globalists are not our mates, most politicians are not our mates, and now sadly a lot of the mainstream media don't seem to be. So just go very, very quickly. I'm sorry, I'm rattling on. But we did some interviews recently with what's called, in the UK, it's called regional radio. So it's local radio stations. It could be BBC, it could be Global, could be whoever. And the interesting thing with them is they are much nicer to us now than they were 3 years ago. Really, really open, really chit-chatty, very embracing, no cancellation, no negativity, which is not what we got 3 or 4 years ago.
No, exactly.
Sorry, I'll be quiet.
No, exactly. Yeah. Well, I think that over here, this kind of dichotomy between the two sides that were just insulting each other, I in my head, it sort of began with Brexit. It kind of began then.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, when one side was not interested in the opinions of the other. People who were pro-Brexit were gammons and jingoists and fascists and blah, blah, blah. People who were pro-Europe were corporate elitists, Ramonas. It became a big insult thing. I remember that there were criticism from the BBC, or about the BBC, because when they did broadcasts outside the House of Commons, they always managed to get in the frame the Remainers rather than Brexiteers.
Oh, the Euro flag.
The guy with the Euro flag, yeah. So that's when I first noticed it. And we went to, at the very beginning, when all this COVID nonsense happened, we went to a demonstration in Trafalgar Square, mainly just to have a look. I mean, we weren't motivated to take part particularly. We just wanted to see what was happening. I'd never been to a demonstration before, so it's a very un-English thing to do, I think, to demonstrate. But it's what we did. So we went along and had a look. And we were photographed. And the minute we were photographed, they all came out.
Piers Morgan,
the whole tribe.
Usual suspects.
And I'd grown up in a country, I'm sure you did, where you thought, I live in a democracy, so therefore I can express myself and my opinion, and it's cool, it's fine. And other people can disagree, but that's the way it is. And then suddenly you realize the country you've grown up in is not the country you thought it was at all. And that having an opinion that's not shared by either the mainstream or the government can be a problem.
Yeah, especially, and it's especially confusing and confounding when your opinion is that you should put more attention on domestic affairs, be friends and neighbors with the rest of the world, obviously. They always try to call you isolationists and this and that and make you sound like you're nuts. But I mean, you would think that would be more of a testament of love of your home, yes. to not surrender sovereignty to some internationalist tribunal thousands of miles away. But that's the criticisms people get.
It is.
I mean, what happened when we voted to leave? To be actually hands up, well, honest. Why, if there'd been a third option, which was
don't know,
which was to go back to the old EEC, which was the European Economic Community. I would have voted for that because I think a trade, an understanding of trade within Europe makes total sense. But there wasn't. It was in or out, and I'm pretty appalled by the globalists sort of agenda. So I couldn't remain. I didn't want to remain. But it was interesting. I was actually quite a mild, leaver, if you like. But the hostility was absolutely mental. And why have you voted that? Explain yourself and source and show me that link. And
we were just to give you an idea of how mental it was. We were asked to go on television to re-record "I'm Too Sexy" and change the lyrics to "I'm Too Brexity."
It's obviously you guys are in the epicenter for that. But even over here, I remember June of 2016 very well. I was just talking about it last week. My brother and I, with my band, we were down in Anaheim for VidCon and doing some performances down there. And the people who were from the UK meeting up with American friends over here, everybody's like seeing each other like they're at the the almost like the after party at a funeral. They're like, "I'm so sorry. How you holding up?" I'm like, "Holding up? What's going on?" So let me just ask you then. That's almost 10 years ago now. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Because the casual American perspective on Brexit is that it happened and nothing seems to have really changed. So what's happened?
Well, it was. I think it's. I mean, there's the trade issue, and that could be. I'm sure we could talk about that one way or the other, and as to how it's affected different people. I think fundamentally, it was a democrat. For me, it was a democratic issue, and it's just, for me, the minute a political organization gets really big, we all get really small. That's the way it works.
Yeah.
So the EU for me was a vast bureaucratic machine. And an MEP's constituency is several times bigger than a normal MP's constituency. So therefore, the individual voter has much less sway over that representative. So for me, it was a question of democracy, and it was a philosophical thing. I think it was sold in many ways as a trade issue, but deep down, I think a lot of people wanted control over their own lives, and the way they felt about it was that. That the EU represented a system that reduced their ability to control their own life. I think that's what it was. I agree with you, Frank. I completely agree. And I'll tell you who said this perfectly was Tucker Carlson the other day when he was speaking in Germany, I think. And he was saying that a leader's responsibility is to his own people. Viktor Orban is a really good example of that, I think. You'll have some left-wing BBC journalist taking him to task for not bringing in any immigrants or whatever. His thing is, my platform was no immigration. My platform was Hungarian people first. That's it. And good luck to him. I think that's the platform. We now have. I saw an interview today with Kamala Harris saying that she thinks that forget immigrants, illegal immigrants, the word illegal tells you exactly what the situation is, should have healthcare, Medicare, dental care, glass. This is insanity.
Yeah.
It is completely insane. And I saw a brief image today of a convention where Kamala Harris was supposed to be speaking. I was amazed that there was more than one person there. Truly.
Yeah, listen, you guys are in show business. You have to know that there is a level of production to everything. That's the only way I could put it in a nutshell. But on that right there, what is the, it's sad to see how we're not dissimilar in the way that we're losing much of our shared culture. I mean, American in English culture is actually, joined at the hip in many ways, but still we're seeing other things there that's going on. So we're losing a lot of that in favor of globalism, the migrant invasions that are obviously they're premeditated. They're there to create a very distinct change across several continents now. Do you think England, which is, let's be honest, the United States, if we had 20 million people dropped on us, it's going to have a negative impact, but we're the size of a subcontinent. It's a little bit easier to hide that. London is, from what we see over here, completely changed, like Paris. Do you think that England is beyond repair at this point?
No.
Lots of people think it is.
I don't think it's beyond repair. But I think there's a problem. And I think what the problem people are feeling is that we flew in from Europe last week, and obviously you queue up with your passport, and you're a documented person. Well, even though you're going home to where you pay your bills and everything, they still want to search you, and they still want you to justify.
Let's have a look at your passport.
You to justify and validate who you are to come into your country.
Exactly.
What's driving a lot of people nuts is what they're seeing is people are being allowed to come in undocumented. And what's crazy is that, anything, for example, I had to go to the post office to pick up a parcel. They wouldn't give it to me unless I was documented. I had to show them my driving license. Fine, because I should prove who I am. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
But what I think is really pissing people off is that they're seeing this huge difference. Is that there's literally one rule for them, one rule for us. And what this policy will fail, it will fail the immigrants as much as it will fail the host nation, because they will start to be treated. There'll be a racist aspect to this. There already is. There already is. There'll be certain communities will start to shut themselves off. There'll be more animosity towards certain communities, and this wasn't the case even half a dozen years ago. This is quite new. I mean, the town we live in is not far from a town called Slough. And Slough is a very multicultural town, and it's generally speaking, up to a few years ago, you could wander around. It wasn't a problem. We're talking to one of my neighbour's sons the other day, and he said you can't at night. There are too many gangs of kids. It's got too much. Well, he called it sketchy.
Sketchy.
That was he said no. He said, I have to wait for my dad to come and pick me up. It's too sketchy.
That
wasn't the case.
We now have, as you probably know, a new prime minister. Supposedly parachuted in, and another WF clone, and he was questioned by the ex-prime minister today about Sunak questioned Starmer, and the first question that Sunak asked was about the Ukraine war. That's the first question.
Not
Not about English people, not about British people, not about housing, not about people on the streets. None of that. It was all about the Ukraine war, and that is. And we now have Starmer has, and I'm sure that Biden's probably the same. They are committing, in the UK at least, I think they're committing something like £43 million per month or whatever it is, for as long as it takes, he says.
That's what he said.
Yeah. Now we have an elderly people's home right around the corner that needs new carpets, that needs the roof looking at. It could do with a lick of paint. Why? I agree with you, Frank, completely. The ordinary indigenous people of the US, of France, of Germany are getting completely sidelined on this weird kind of woke, I don't know what it is, this weird agenda where the left, it's almost as if the left perceives anything that's indigenous as being inherently bad, racist, narrow-minded, problematic, criminal. I don't know what it is, but I never hear a politician. We only have a few over here: Lee Anderson, Nigel Farage, maybe a couple. But that's why I think Trump is so successful. I think the reason is what's interesting about Trump is he's not popular on the basis of his policies particularly. He's popular on the basis of the fact that people believe, whether rightly or wrongly, that he is for them. He's not for the WF. He's not for Soros. He's not for any. Whether that's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. That's the perception. And Tucker Carlson was absolutely right when he said being a prime minister or being a king or being a president does not make you a leader. It's not automatic. And that's what's interesting about Trump is he's a leader, even though he's not a president. I think it's quite interesting how we have a new king now. He's not perceived in anything like the same way as the late Queen was.
No,
never will be.
No, that's weird. The passing of Queen Elizabeth was a really big thing over
Much
here.
more than we thought, I think.
It has a knock-on effect, and he's going to really struggle to have anything like the love of the country that I think she experienced.
Yeah, I think.
Where are you, Frank, on the Trump issue?
Well, I mean, hey, I voted for him in 2016, in 20, and he's already won twice. So I mean, we'll just go for it again. Go for it again in November. I was actually going to ask you guys, if you guys, they're just registering strangers at the southern border to vote right now. So there's nothing really stopping you if you want to come give us a hand. But
hey, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Would fly to Mexico, would go up through the southern border and vote for Trump.
That's it. I'm telling you, as long as you go through that door, you're fine. But I was talking about it just last night because what you're describing here is something that's just so incredible. What exactly is the world you're trying to make? When you already when you think about people at the WEF, when you think about the people who are working at these NGOs and they're in internationalist government and banks and all that, they already had everything a person, an organization. They had all the resources imaginable back in the 90s. They already had it all. So what exactly is the point of destabilizing all of this good, beautiful earth, all these wonderfully mutually exclusive cultures all across Europe and Asia and everything else? Why do you want to raise it to the ground, to meld it, to turn it from a wonderful fruit basket into this horrible smoothie? Why do you want it? What the hell is the incentive to get to that end game? I just don't know.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier today.
Yeah,
and I actually don't know. I mean, I think it's one thing it's important to imagine. We have to imagine that not all WF members agree with each other. That can't be so. Not all elites agree with each other. Not all billionaires agree with others.
They are all mental, though.
They're all quite mad.
Oh, yes.
But that doesn't mean there's a unity. So, Zuckerberg might not like Soros, or Musk might not like Zuckerberg. I don't know. Whoever. And there's a whole bunch of people we probably didn't even heard of. That's another strata, another sort of invisibleness. Behind the Rothschilds or the Orsinis or whoever these people are, and we were saying, what exactly is their goal? Because do they want us all to die and just have a lot less people so they can do what?
I mean, it has been a huge transfer of wealth, which may be part of
being wealthy. If this,
but the thing is, what you've got to, I think we have to get into our heads is if I had 20 million pounds in the bank, I think I'd be fine with that. But there are lots of people out there who that wouldn't be fine. They want 21. They want 22. There's a guy down the road who's got a 30-foot yacht. I want a 35-foot yacht.
Yes.
And so that's a never-ending ambition. I was watching a thing tonight about the WF, and there's an Indian guy talking about another terrible source of CO2 which we need to deal with is rice.
Oh, for God's sake!
Oh boy. You know, cow farts keep coming up I'm telling you, I just saw another round of headlines maybe about a month ago. I showed my wife, I said, it's the cow flatulence again, honey. It just doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. You know, it's just, I don't know. But this is all, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go on. No, go on.
No. I was just riffing. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you think they are panicking? Do you think it's going to plan, or do you think it's just fucking chaos?
I think that there's a sense of panic. You know who the person, when I really saw it, I mean, it's easy to see because especially the plans that they roll out to kind of mitigate all of the bumps in the road. What the bumps in the road being a human will. I mean, the fact that they have to contend with, they have to actually play to that tradition of consent. Is something that is really hard for them because, like we were saying before, it was easier to manufacture consent when you didn't have ways to circumvent the one source of information people used to have, and now it's a lot harder to manufacture consent. There's a lot of civil warring inside of certain factions now. Like we are splintering. It's kaleidoscopic out there at this point, but. There was this one woman at the World Government Summit last year or something who had made a pretty concerning. Seemed pretty concerned about the fact that there are less and less people who are listening to us, and we have to find a way to. We know what's best for them, so we have to find a way to get around this. So there's no doubt about it. They're trying to regain something, and the fact that it's becoming more and more chaotic as we go along. That tends to show me that they have no really good options left but to cause chaos, to be able to create some sort of a cry for stability in the midst of it.
Yeah,
that's kind of where we sort of ended up saying maybe it's just going to end up with curfews and some sort of martial law or some sort of stricter, the chaos is to justify where they tend to get to. Right?
Yes, I don't think.
I don't know.
I don't think the chaos and the drug addiction that you see in some American cities and here too. I don't think anything's accidental. I don't believe anything is accidental. Right. If a politician really wanted to deal with that, or a party wanted to deal with it, they would deal with it, but they just let it go. And I think it's. We were talking to a lady called Doreen the other day on a podcast, and I think she was absolutely right. She said what COVID did was it drew the veil back. For the first time, I think for a lot of people, they suddenly thought, actually, what I thought was happening is not actually what's happening. And it's a bit like being in the theatre and watching all the scenery move, and then suddenly somebody takes you backstage and you see all the winches and the handles and the ropes. It's
like at the end of Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
The guy with the...
Yes, exactly.
With the pool.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the... personally, I think it's in a way... academic, what the end goal is. You have Yuval Harari on one side, who thinks that humans are the last hackable machine, being. I mean, he's completely bonkers. Poor old Harari. I feel quite sorry for him. And then you have the Islamic preachers who think that everything is down to Allah and it's nothing to do with mathematics and the machinery, if you like. It's all to do with the spirit. So you have at the moment we're going through this period where there's this weird dichotomy between the mathematicians on one side, the people who think it's all about numbers, all about zeros and ones and the computer, people like Yuval Harari or Schwab. And then you have on the other side, you have this and it's saying, and we've seen over here, the Christian fundamentalism, the Islamic fundamentalism, the Israeli and the Palestinian conflict. There's this, it's a real hot boiling thing of two completely different concepts and ideas about what makes a human being, what makes us, what makes life worth living, what makes reality, if you like. And when Yuval Harari and people like that talk about, human beings becoming hackable, all that kind of nonsense. I always refer to them whenever I'm on the tweet thing there's a sculpture called La Pieta, which I think by Da Vinci, I think, but I'm not even sure. And I think he did it when he was 24, and it took about 10 years. And it's one of the most beautiful things you'll ever see. It's a marble sculpture of Christ on Mary's lap. And you can forget the religious component, doesn't matter. What is true is that there's a spirit in it. That's what it is. It's a spirit that can only come out of a person, that can only come out of some kind of the spirituality that the human soul has. The computer could never do that, never could do that. So I think that's where we are. I think it's a bit like Terminator. You have you've got the machines, and then you've got the people, and it's this.
I was gonna wear my Terminator shirt today, and I didn't. I opted for the Warriors.
A moment lost.
Yeah, a moment lost. Yeah, exactly.
Man.
So I think it is. Yeah. I mean, when you ask the question, where are we going with this? I don't think anybody really knows. In fact, I don't think the people behind it really know.
I'll tell you what I found really weird is after when Trump got shot, or however you want to phrase that, was the amount of people in high profile came out and said it's a pity they missed.
Yeah.
Why would you wish the death of a human being based on their opinions?
He's got a son, he's got a daughter, he's got a wife.
Yeah. Well, the short answer to actually diagnose where it all comes from is it's that most of these people have been groomed and brainwashed, programmed. The way that I diagnosed it in the days after the assassination attempt was that MK Ultra, what started off as one patient in a basement somewhere being broken down, split apart, disassociated from trauma, all that other stuff, has really been turned into a mass communication protocol, and they've been able to do this on a wide scale. I mean, there are just a lot of really highly impressionable, unintelligent, pre-programmed biocomputer people out there who are okay with saying this stuff because they have been made to truly believe that this is a genocidal maniac. And if you believe somebody is like that, then why would you have any? It would almost be a service to mankind if they were gone. So they're working. They're remote controlled human beings, and it's the only reason why I can see that so many of them don't have any kind of check on what they allow to come out of their mouths, what kind of thoughts they're putting into the universe there.
I know what you're saying, but I sort of half agree. I mean, I think, because I watched a thing today where a guy took a microphone, did a vox pop thing in Gaza, and he was basically talking to Palestinians about their relationship with Hamas, and whether they agreed with Hamas and what they thought happened on October the 7th, and blah, 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 blah. And there wasn't one person, it could have been edited, I agree, but there wasn't one person he spoke to that disassociated themselves from Hamas.
Right.
And not one person he spoke to that thought that what happened on October the 7th was a bad thing. So now, I think those people are infected with hatred that comes from books. It comes from ancient books that some people cannot stop believing in. So I think some people are programmed. I agree. I think that's quite possible. But I think other people are just so innately cruel. We have a journalist over here who runs a radio show, who said pretty much what Fred said earlier about, pity you miss kind of thing. Yeah, I don't think he's been programmed. It's just the left in this country certainly
that's a poisonous thing to say.
Yeah, the left in this country certainly has gone down an extremely dark philosophical it's gone into a real swamp. I don't know what's the matter with it.
But back in the 90s, we worked with an agency in America, and they're pretty much America's biggest entertainment industry, and we got to know one of the bookers very well, who was having a bit of a rethink about how his job, and he was very successful. And he told me, he said, we have regular meetings with the CIA. The CIA have an entertainment department, which we regularly talk with. And he said, we engage in mass communications. That's what entertainment is these days. Mass communications, and we will communicate whatever we've been asked to communicate. And now, I don't know how true it is. It's just what he told me. And I'm not going to say his name because they might want to
come out and kill you.
But he was having a real problem with his job. And he was quite high up in this agency. And he said, and this is go back 30 years. And this is back then. And he was saying, it's not good what we're doing. He says, some of the stuff is not, you think you're going to a gig, you think you're going to see a movie. He said, it's not always that. And that's concerning, you know.
Well, look at Walt Disney.
Yeah, I mean, something that we're hearing now about Disney with these putting the chemtrails
Into old movies.
Into old movies.
Yes.
I mean,
To make you think it's been happening forever.
yeah, I don't know how true that is, but
I wouldn't put it past them.
No, I mean,
That's an incredible story, and I'm sure you have more. Over 40 years, you must have more like that.
Yeah, I mean, you do. There are a lot of people out there who, well, first of all, when we, got labelled with speaking out in 2020.
Which in itself, I just gotta say, Fred, which in itself is incredible, because I talk a lot about and I still have some cultural music industry questions I have to ask you guys. But when I think about, I don't know. Let me put it to you this way: on this show, we talk a lot about feeling it's becoming necessary to look back on the past, if for no other reason than to be not to get drunk on nostalgia, but to remind ourselves that things were objectively better years ago, and they've only gotten worse, despite what people said that we're progressing to better places. I'm not even talking about music here. I mean, in November, I watch old Thanksgiving Day parades in New York City from the 90s. I binge on old television commercials. Some days I'm over here shedding a tear over a 40-year-old Turtle Wax commercial, and I'm like, oh my God, you can tell things were so much better back then. But as an example of how backward we've slid, you guys went from being pop culture darlings in the in the circuit over there to you were actually dubbed the most controversial band in the UK.
Yeah,
I mean,
apparently we were given some award that we given by our person at the time. I mean, the whole thing is
it's not difficult to be controversial these days.
No.
It's really not.
I mean, just having an opinion, just saying, well, actually, I think that you get absolutely lambasted now. And what happened to us is just on a personal level. 2020 was looking like a very good year for us. We'd had three or four very good years before that, partly due to Taylor Swift and some other stuff. And then we had everything pulled. We had a film cancelled. We had 2 commercials cancelled. We had nearly 100 shows cancelled. And we still get now. I mean, our agent is based in Holland. He's not in the UK. But our agent who gets the shows in the UK, he said it's very, very difficult because there are artists that will not share the stage with you because of you speaking out. This is 4 years later, and I mean, fortunately, the UK has never been our most important market. It's always been Europe or the US, always. And so from that point of view, it's not a huge loss, but it's not upsetting, but it's disappointing. And I think it's. I just think it's very weird that people, we going back to having an opinion. So you don't get someone saying, "Oh, you've decided not to have the jab." Well, that's your opinion. It's how dare you? You're threatening me. You're risking. You're putting me at risk. Well, that's just not true.
Well, not if you had the jab. I mean, stop saying.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing's.
There was a lady around the corner from us who has now passed away, and she accused a friend of ours who didn't have the jab of threatening her human rights because he was walking around threatening her health by his breathing,
by not having
had, and now needless to say, he's absolutely fine and she's gone.
This just came up a week ago when the Trump assassination attempt was still so fresh, because when people, like you guys were saying, people were expressing dismay that the shooter missed.
Yes.
You had doctors and teachers, people in prestigious positions, and people who were just cashiers at Home Depot who had all these public declarations get brought to the limelight. They caught all this attention, and a lot of them lost their jobs. And people are like, should we be canceling everybody the way that, is it right when we do it? I'm like, this is completely different, first of all. I mean, Jack Black and Kyle Gass, they went and they personally canceled their own tour. Obviously, because they probably brought a lot of unneeded attention to the venues, insurance, who the hell knows? But that's different from you guys having an opinion about biomedical lockdowns and people saying get out of here, and then everybody else is wishing death upon.
I mean, we got labelled anti-vax, which we're not. Yeah. We've never said we are. And the Daily Mail and Piers Morgan, all the usual suspects had a go at us. And what was strange is our position was always, surely people should be left to choose. And if you want to go and have the COVID vaccine, fantastic. Well, knock
yourself out.
Knock yourself out.
Yeah, but if you don't, you shouldn't be penalised.
Yeah,
but that's exactly what happened. It happened to us. It happened to guys like High Res and 5 Times August and a whole bunch of Matt Hoy, a whole bunch of bands.
Then also,
and I just think it's really it's just the strangest thing. I don't understand why people would sort of, I don't be so antagonistic towards people who just have an opinion. And we got blocked by a bunch of bands. I've never talked to Simply Red in my, couple.
were you blocked by Simply Red?
Simply Red blocked us on Twitter.
Uh-huh.
No idea why.
I always thought that was crap anyway.
Yeah, no, I just, the whole thing just
the passive aggression is the worst. I just at least just tell me, let's just get into a fight. Just don't be passively aggressive, please.
No,
exactly. I don't know.
I was watching Yuval Harari talk a few weeks ago, and what he was saying about COVID was that it was an essential step in the experimentation of control.
Is that what he said?
Yeah. He said COVID had to happen because we had to know how easy or difficult it was going to be to control a significant number of people. Now, let's supposing he's talking the truth. Let's say he's telling the truth. If he is, it makes the whole COVID thing much more significant than just a virus coming out of the Wuhan lab. It becomes part of a much bigger scam. And I don't know what it's like over in the States, but we had, people not being allowed to see their parents in an old people's home and everything. And at the same time, that total lunatic Boris Johnson having champagne cake parties at Number 10.
Same thing here.
So I think people were finally at that time were beginning. A lot of people still didn't wake up, but a lot of people were beginning to think this isn't right. Something isn't right here. And I go back to what you were saying earlier, Frank, which is that a politician's primary job is the people that put them there, their welfare, their safety, their ability to work, their ability to feed their family, put money on the table, and put food on the table. And we have a situation now where politicians are more concerned with what's going on in Ukraine, more concerned with throwing money over there than they are with sorting out what's going on in the streets in the US.
Yeah.
So to me, this is a fundamental shift in a philosophical position, particularly on the left. And I think, ironically, it's now the right that is now more prepared to speak about ordinary people, more prepared to speak about the importance of jobs and trade and all that. The left are going down this identitarian thing, which is all to do with trans and puberty blockers and all this other stuff, which I don't think resonate with a huge majority of American people or Europeans.
No, and you're right. And what you had just said, what Harari had put out there, and what we were all saying too in the middle of this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is a compliance test. And we're going to see who passes and who fails. And most of the people who fail that compliance test, they understand that going back means to have been, I don't know, to admit that the last however many years you've been living really only half a life, if that much, because you have surrendered so much of your critical thinking to somebody else's daily press releases. And it's a big thing. And you're talking about shift there, and I'm sure current events will always come back into this. But on a musical level, you guys have toured extensively in Europe and throughout the world. How have people and places changed over the course of your career? How have shows changed? Has the fan base shifted in any way? I'd like to know about that too, just in general.
I think what we've noticed is there's much more, people are greedier. That's the first thing. Promoters are more aggressive about what they pay you. And the people for example, when we do shows, we have musicians and crew and whatever. And they are much more aggressive about their fee. So what we've found is our fees are taking a bit of a dip, and everyone we pay, their fees have gone up.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Secondly, there's a lot more paranoia around live shows now. And we've never, when we've played, not once in the last 40 years have we ever mentioned politics on stage.
No.
We just don't. It's not what we do. We're not one of those bands. We get on and we do what we do, and then we go home. And but now we get promoters saying, "Oh, the boys are going to talk about politics."
Oh no.
Well,
Yes, I know.
Well, we never have, and why would we?
No.
You know, and I guess some artists are. I suppose maybe.
Well, Morrissey does, I think, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean some do, but
Yeah.
I mean, usual suspects. But there's I think people still go to concerts to escape.
Yeah.
They still go to for the vibe. They still go to have a good time with their mates to see whatever band and whichever songs or festival, whatever it is. So I don't think that's changed. But I think people's lives outside that have changed, and sometimes they bring that with them. And one of the people we work with, she's Iranian. Her family left around many years ago. She is heartbroken with the way. She's based in Germany. She's heartbroken the way the country they chose to live in is now
Becoming like the place they left.
The place they left.
Yeah.
And she's very concerned. And I think that's totally legitimate. Her concern is hers, and it's legitimate. So what we found is that people now their lives are darker. They don't feel as good about themselves. So work is really important. Fun is really, having a good time is really important. And I think there's a general I think overall people are trying to be nice to each other. In our experience, I mean, the music industry is always a cesspit, it's a fucking cesspit, and we all know that.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I've noticed that there's not right across the board, but there's a general sort of slightly nicer approach from musician to musician. From some of the people we're talking to are very approachable. You get emails back quickly. It's certainly the new bloods. We're working with a new production company in the UK, and they're really on it. I mean, all late 20s, early 30s. They're really, really on point compared to some of the people we've worked with who maybe 20 years they're senior.
Yeah,
I think it sort of changes.
Yeah, I think there is a difference. I mean, I don't know whether you saw the Glastonbury this year, Frank, but the Glastonbury this year was a woke fest of pro-Palestinian lunatics. And I mean, if I'd been a Jewish guy in the audience, I think I would have had to leave. So what seems to have happened to me, to audiences, is that certain big festivals have become incredibly woke and incredibly political
because they're sponsors.
Because they're sponsors and everything else. And some audiences are very, very keen not to have a good time.
And that's why, and this is why I thought you guys would be so amazing to speak on this subject, because especially when you talk about that whole 1990s Eurodance kind of sound. I mean, the energy that came along with that, and I'm born in 1985, so when I'm Too Sexy is on MTV commercials, the soundtrack of Grumpy Old Men, I'm 7, 8, 9 years old. I still get the references. I knew the song, but it mainly just became one of those core memories to mark the time. And I think that's just what it is, because that sound, the freedom in that sound and the fun in that sound is the antithesis of where we are culturally right now.
Yeah, Fred had a nice text, a Facebook message today about it from a guy. Tweet was it? Who said that he had listened to a couple of our songs, and it was only the songs that gave him the energy and the positivity to get up and face the day. Yeah. And that's, for me, that's the whole story. It really is that simple. The idea of going on stage to make people more miserable than they already are doesn't appeal to me. I could do that on my own.
I know.
It appeal to me at all.
Yeah.
I think you can be serious on stage. You can deliver moods, and you can deliver stories and all that kind of stuff. I love JJ Cale for the same kind of reason. But it doesn't have to be dour. It doesn't have to be depressing. It doesn't have to be sad in a way.
I don't know about in America, but the UK is addicted to bad-tempered music.
Yeah.
Oh my God! We've got all these. Everyone's got a frown or one eyebrow, and even the girls. It's bloody horrible. It is. Yeah. God forbid anyone releases a good tune, because all you get labelled with in the UK is you're cheesy.
Cheesy.
You can't. Disco would have died if it'd been reliant. If disco had been reliant on the UK, it wouldn't have been allowed. It was only because it broke out of America with such a such a momentum. But the UK's got this really weird You know, we have all these artists. It's so glum.
There's a very brooding kind of a sound that is out there, and aside from that, everything is just so disposable. Like there's nothing that really sticks these days, unless it's a meme. You know, unless it just becomes, it's almost like on a joke. You guys have already brought up several things where you talked about disco. You're talking about where we are right now. Let me just throw this at you, because I think that you can really just run with this one. That whole Eurodance sound is, you know, undeniably early 90s, which picked up right where the freestyle sound of the 80s really left off. And I feel like you can clearly identify every decade of the 20th century based on the music that was released at that time, throughout that entire century. Do you think that is still true for the music in the 21st century? Can you say, oh, that was 2000 to 2010? I feel like the 21st century, there's very, it's very hard for the generations to identify themselves with their style. I
think my daughter's 26, and her friends identify with songs. Her and her friends tend to focus on songs more than bands, and I think that may be a thing of their generation. Okay. Also, I think music reflects, art imitates life, and life imitates art, and life is very, very risk averse, and I think music is as well. People don't want to take chances. People don't want to go out on a limb. People don't want to speak out. People don't want to voice an opinion. So that's why so much music is so bland. And I think it's because a lot of people are. Yeah. They don't want to step outside. They want everything, you know, particularly after, I think, 20 years of talent shows, you know, Pop Idols and X Factor and all this dreadful stuff. I think people almost want to sit at home and be spoon-fed their entertainment, which is why, you know, which is why people are so conditioned. It's going back to what you're saying about the MK Ultra, people being conditioned. If you watch the X Factor, everyone claps when someone sings high. Oh, he sings high.
Leonard Cohen wouldn't work.
No. What are you on about? He sings like kids. You know, those are great singers. Dylan never did. Well,
you've probably got a guy down on the front doing this.
Oh yeah,
telling people to clap.
And it's this mindset. You know, oh, he's really good. He can sing high. What? You know, and I think there's this programming, and I personally think it can change. There's some bands out there. Not actually my cup of tea. One of the bands, but there's an English band called the Raytons, and they're young kids. From a housing estate. It's music's upbeat, and they're just getting on and doing it themselves. And I think that will happen, just because people everything's a cycle. This vanilla beige overload we've had for 15, 20 years. I think that there will be a movement against that. It'd be great to see another electronica movement or a punk movement or something needs to happen.
It was quite interesting watching over the last 3 or 4 years the number of artists in the music business and entertainers generally who spoke out. You can actually count them on the fingers of one hand.
I was going to ask if you guys have had any communication with Roger Waters or something like that. He was the only one. He has a big set of balls. You know.
Yes, he has.
Yes, he has.
I mean, we've never communicated with those sort of artists, but we have communicated with High Res, Jim Core from the Cause. 5 Times August, a few other bands.
But it was a weird thing, wasn't it? Because Eric then lost the use of his hands for a certain amount of time, so he spoke out and basically just related his story. That's all he did. But the amount of flack that he got just for doing that was extraordinary. Yeah. And then you get cretinous people like Elton John and Paul McCartney and these people who just maybe they were paid. I don't know. Maybe they're just stupid. I've got no idea. But they pushed this thing like a cheap drug seller on the corner. You know, I thought it was disgraceful. And I personally have taken all there's loads of artists now I can't listen to them because I know what kind of people they are.
Yeah, I think that's failing, isn't it?
It is.
You know, and like Rage Against the Machine, or
with all their masks on.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a band over here called Kaiser Chiefs, and people now call them the Pfizer Chiefs because they did this big pro-vax thing at the Isle of Wight Festival, and actually created a huge animosity towards the unvaccinated. They purposely promoted that division. And it's because music, my thing, music has always been there to unite. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah.
And when we first toured in America, the really cool thing was before we landed, we were told you're doing a cross-roster tour. Well, I had no fucking idea what that was. And I said, what do you mean? They said it was different artists. So it was us, and then it was different artists all the time. Us, Extreme, James Brown, CC Pedeston, Marky Mark,
Wow.
Mark and the Funk Bunch. And a whole bunch of people would come and go. And so you'd have a rapper, then you'd have a rock band, then you'd have a pop band like us. And we did shows with Spinal Tap and all sorts of people. And it was interesting because it was just seen as music. It was seen as unite people. It doesn't matter if the genre is different. Everyone goes to the gig and they might not like us or they might not like whoever else, but it's there to unite people.
Yeah.
And when I suddenly saw these bands using music to fragment and divide people, I thought that was just fucking disgusting.
It was actually pretty depressing.
Yeah, I mean, people like Gene Simmons.
I know.
I mean, you also have your opinion and say I'm not taking it or I am taking it, but don't.
But also the whole thing, particularly I would have thought if you're American, where the importance of freedom of speech and the importance of thinking for yourself and being untethered was so central to what you were. And then you had Americans coming out about Springsteen and some of these others just coming out, just regurgitating the narrative.
It's been very disappointing. It's been very disappointing.
Yeah,
it's not. It's not. And obviously, you guys, your industry, your home is music. But I mean, for anybody who's just a normal consumer over here, we got music. We have our favorite. You guys have your favorite movies. It's very hard sometimes to even look back at actors and actresses who have completely beclowned themselves.
I know,
and it's just you got to try to separate. Okay, this is just think of this person as a character and just forget about who they really are. It's horrible.
The only person I've been able to do that with was with Frank Sinatra and the Mafia. I can actually, because I love Sinatra, and I can separate him from that dark side. I've never read a biography of his. I'm not interested. I just listen to the music. That for me is enough. But for every other artist, the minute I get that vibe off them that makes me think they're not a nice or a free thinking person, then I find it really, really hard to track back.
Well, I think it's the genre. The reason we pissed off a lot of people was because we're Right Said Fred. We are that band that recorded "I'm Too Sexy."
Yes.
And how
we strayed from our lane, Frank.
Yeah.
That was the problem.
Yeah, so we were the last people on the planet that most other music professionals thought would speak out.
Yeah.
And also, what's interesting is how we've been how we've been dealt with by the so-called truth movement or freedom movement. They don't want to acknowledge that we've spoken out because they didn't like us anyway. So they're just they don't.
Everybody hates us.
They don't like us because they wanted Robbie Williams to speak out.
Yeah.
They wanted whoever their favorite artist is. It doesn't really matter. They wanted these people to speak out, but they didn't, and they're stuck with us, and they resent us for it. So we're in this really weird place. So we've got all these people in the freedom movement who actually just wish we'd go away. And we got all people on the other.
I'm the type that's just like, hey man, let's get this done. Let's get this together. I want everybody to be seeing the same damn thing. The worst thing about living through what we're doing right now is the understanding that everybody is seeing. There is no objective reality is becoming far harder and harder to just to be able to grasp. It's one thing for people to have stylistic change. I like Right Said Fred. Well, I like Pantera. Well, I like both. I like all this stuff. It's one thing to have personal style and taste. It's another thing for everybody to see images, to see reality, to understand what's being done to us in different ways. And that kind of that's right there. I say, hey, call all the banners and. Hey, listen. Right Said Fred's on my white list now. That's what I would say.
No, I agree. I was listening to. Do you remember a track by Canned Heat called "Work Together"?
Yes.
Let's together. Right.
Great song.
I was listening to that today, and I've actually tweeted it a couple of times because that is exactly what's required. Yeah. People need to drop their. You take these glasses off, and accept the fact that not everybody's going to agree with you. Your opinion is yours and yours alone, but it doesn't mean to say that other people don't have an opinion and a right to have an opinion. The only thing that my only personal obsession, really, I suppose, is that everybody, you have to have manners, you have to have respect for other people, and you have to understand that what you think you know is not the whole truth, which is why I have a problem with, all, you know, whether it's the Bible or the Torah or the Quran or anything else. To me, they are just books, and some people will believe them, some people won't. That's fine, but don't bash me up because I don't. That's my only. I think I think Nietzsche said, "Have the courage to use your own intellect." That's my position.
Well, where you guys? Let's end by saying, where is Right Said Fred going to be with all these with the entire landscape rearranging itself before you? Where are you guys? What are you guys doing now? Where are you going to be next? And how can people look after you?
Well, despite what we've just said, we've just done a deal with Pfizer, so we'll drop the yacht.
Pfizer music.
Pfizer music.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah. So we're well, obviously people can find us on rightsaidfred.com or on at the Freds on Twitter. But we go into pre-production. Well, actually, we started pre-production already. We've got some shows in August. So if you're in the UK, you can find us on August 10th at the Jam for Freedom Festival, August 25th at the Sunshine Festival in Upton upon Severn. Germany, we're on August 17th at Wittenberg, and then we're back in Germany at the beginning of October. And then we go further afield in January with South Africa, and then back to Europe, I think, in the spring.
Nice.
So we're in and out. We're doing some recording, we're doing a couple of interesting writing projects at the moment. So we're trying to catch up, having been sidelined for so long. It is a bit of a catch-up process.
It is,
at the moment, yeah. Which is just how it is.
Well, if you're ever in the New York area and you need a bald drummer, you just let me know because I'll be there for you.
Matt, you're on, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Ball drummers are right up our street.
Absolutely.
Oh man, so okay, so hey, listen, you guys spent an hour with me, and I'm very grateful for that. I thought we were only going to get about 45 minutes in, but the conversation was just way too rich. Any parting? Aside from everybody knows where to follow you and find you now, and but any parting shots other than that? Go right ahead.
Well, I just think we have to focus on what unites us and not what separates us. Really.
Yes, I agree.
It sounds
completely.
a bit corny. It sounds a bit like a greetings card, doesn't it? But I actually think it's true.
Yeah.
I think the division, the attempt to divide us all, is off the chart, and we need to fight that.
Also, Kennedy said something good the other day. He said, "Let's just try and be nice to each other."
That'd be good, wouldn't it?
I know it's like, okay, it's a bit LA, blah, 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 but it's a really simple thing. Say thank you when somebody opens the door for you and lets the car go across. Say good morning to people that you know. Just be a little bit more human, That's it.
A little goes a long way. Fred, Richard, the Freds, Right Said Fred, rightsaidfred.com. Thank you guys for everything. I hope that this is the first of many appearances, by the way. We should keep in touch.
Absolutely, Frank. Thank you very much.
Anytime, mate. Anytime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
At this time, I'd like to ask everyone to leave the room so I can have a private moment with Coop. Now that we're alone, Coop, there's something I want to tell you. Remember when you had the crabs and the only thing that made you feel better was this lotion? Well, I found another use for it. It feels so good. It makes me want to sing. Just like that night we spent in the tattoo parlor in Chicago. Come on, baby. I'm too sexy for my shirt. Too sexy for my shirt. So sexy it hurts. And I'm too sexy for my car. Too sexy for my car. Too sexy by far.
You getting this?
It's intermission time, folks. Climb out and press the like button.
Hey.
Thank you.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
Quite frankly.
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 Quite frankly. Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly, guys.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
So everybody watch, Quite Frankly, with Frank.
And it's not. That's fantastic to hear. All right, we go over to the White House, and here is what happened around 8 o'clock. Seems like it was short and snappy.
My fellow Americans, I'm speaking to you tonight from behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. In this sacred space, I'm surrounded by portraits of extraordinary American presidents. Thomas Jefferson wrote the immortal words that guide this nation. George Washington, who showed us presidents are not kings. Abraham Lincoln, who implored us to reject malice. Franklin Roosevelt, who inspired us to reject fear. I revere this office, but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. But in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think it's more important than any title. I draw strength and I find joy in working for the American people. But this sacred task of perfecting our union is not about me. It's about you, your families, your futures. It's about we, the people. And we can never forget that. And I never have. I've made it clear that I believe America is at an inflection point. One of those rare moments in history when the decisions we make now will determine our fate of our nation and the world for decades to come. America's going to have to choose between moving forward or backward, between hope and hate, between unity and division.
Why? The only thing I'm at, I mean, it's just all kind of run of the mill. This is what I thought it was always going to be like. But of course, everything leading up to this point was so much more chaotic and so much more, tug of war like. I thought after the debate, maybe he would have just done it then, but there was all this back and forth. But it's very strange to see him looking up and away. Wherever the teleprompter is, it's in a new position that's very awkward. He's looking up and away as if he's staring at the horizon instead of an address right to the camera. So it's an awkward angle. But I don't know. Definitely a lot of makeup to try to bring some kind of color to him. I don't know. There's nobody else in the room. So is it all just a projection? You think about how hard of a time Martin Scorsese had with the de-aging technology for The Irishman. It's not as the audio cloning is pretty good, but the video is not as good as it will be one day, unless they're using the top choice stuff over here.
We have to decide: do we still believe in honesty,
Yeah.
decency, respect, freedom, justice, and democracy? In this moment, we can see those we disagree with not as enemies, but as fellow Americans. Can we do that? Does character in public life still matter? I believe I know the answer to these questions because I know you, the American people. And I know this: we are a great nation because we are good people. When you elected me to this office, I promised to always level with you, to tell you the truth. And the truth, the sacred cause of this country, is larger than any one of us. And those of us who cherish that cause, cherish it so much, a cause of American democracy itself, must unite to protect it. In recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation. There is a time and a place for long years of experience in public life. There's also a time and a place for new voices.
Yeah, I wrote this speech. I wrote this speech in the shower the night of the debate. I wrote this speech. Wrote it in the shower. Scrubbing my back.
Fresh voices. Yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now. Over the next 6 months, I'll be focused on doing my job as president. That means I'll continue to lower costs for hardworking families,
Okay, so obviously there's not going to be, there's 7 minutes left. Obviously there's going to be no attention paid to the fact of the facts swirling around why he's passing this off. He's saying it's for the best of the country's future to introduce a new generation. I mean, we'll listen to a couple of more minutes just out of sheer curiosity. Then I want to open up the lines. I just want to see, it's not about new generations. You weren't talking about new generations as recently as Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning prior to the tweet. Okay? And this has been a growing demand from across the Democrat Party because of doubts in his physical capability to campaign. And if you can't campaign, then you can't be president for 5 months either. Okay, if you're physically unable to campaign, it's one thing to say it's not in my heart. I don't got the heart for it anymore. I don't want to. But he's been fighting with his own party for the last the last month. So from the first 4 minutes, it seems like they're going to completely avoid the whole fact that he is very ill and incapacitated. I don't know what the situation is between Charlie Kirk's sources, between Zach Voorhees' sources out there in Las Vegas, what Laura Loomer has been tweeting out there about medical evacs and comatose states and possible death. I mean, he's never looked good. Obviously, all the color right now is artificial, but he's still slurring. He's staring off in a very weird place. I'm not a good video analyst, so I can't. There's nothing about this that tells me it's all projected. Because all the AI video I've seen, whereas some of it has been pretty stunning into what it can generate. Like, remember we were watching I actually just saved, I think it's for a reel that we're going to watch on Friday night, but somebody, just like the generation of an aerial shot of moving through a old West town, like a California town from the late 19th century. Remember that? It was like an aerial shot of this town that you thought would have been a movie set, but it was AI that generated this old place. AI just generated what it would have been like living in ancient Rome. I got that there too. I mean, it does some pretty interesting things, but as far as having everybody sit down, millions of people train their focus onto one man making a series of statements over the course of 10 minutes, I don't think it's that good enough to escape scrutiny. So if you see any glaring issues here, you got to let me know, because right now I'm just looking at it and saying, all right, well, they at least cobbled together the right drugs to get him through this. It's not a long address. Obviously, it was pre-recorded. They probably did this at 9 a.m. He just had his oatmeal.
Grow our economy. I'll keep defending our personal freedoms and our civil rights.
How?
From the right to vote to the right to choose. I'll keep calling out hate and extremism. Make it clear there is no place in America for political violence or any violence ever, period.
Right. They're just going to call out hate and extremism. That's all.
I'm going to keep speaking out to protect our kids from gun violence. Our planet from climate crisis is an existential threat. And I will keep fighting for my cancer moonshot so we can end cancer as we know it, because we can do it. I'm going to call for Supreme Court reform because this is critical.
So he's going to end cancer. He's going to fight guns, and of course his border czar is going to do it all for him in 5 months.
Critical to our democracy. Supreme Court reform.
Supreme Court reform. All right. So he's laying out the agenda for the rest of his term, and he's not vacating office. He's just passing the torch to a new generation. He is completely capable of doing all things, even though we know now it has been confirmed in many ways that it's really just a team over there. It's just a committee. It's the presidential committee, and Joe Biden is the figurehead when necessary. All right, so 914-200-0269. I'm glad I did not stress myself out over trying to get that in live, because there was really nothing to see there. 914-200-0269. What did you think about the Freds? what is on your mind. We've got about 20 minutes left, and I just want to get through it all and enjoy. Tomorrow's going to be another great night with a great guest. Mark Bisson says, great show, Frank. Right said Fred rock. Have them back. I'd love to. It really took me by surprise how great. I knew it was going to be good, but it was great. Jay Britt says, great interview with the Freds. Thanks, Frank. Katie Sky says, too bad the DNC doesn't actually give a single shit about Black Lives Matter regarding them demanding an open primary. Oh, yeah, I know. That's a toy that they take out of the trunk every once in a while and dust it off when they need a good riot, a good distraction. You know, it's crazy. Joe Biden goes out and says, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. That's something that if a Republican said that, it's over, obviously. Then again, if a Republican mob, just like the Palestinian mob today, you went out there and did what the Palestinians in the U.S. again today did, taking down American flags, burning them, raising Palestinian flags. Well, forget about it. That's exactly what the media is going to do. Forget about it. So Joe Biden says, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. And it was like a couple of days later. They found a way to deploy all Black Lives Matter Antifa into riot mode. I just wish they would not be so obedient. And I just hope that one of these days, something like this will say, all right, you know what? Our birth was illegitimate. We were put together by lesbian Marxist witches, literally. That there's witchcraft involved in our start, but I've met some good people along the way, and perhaps there is some good energy here that can be reformed into something that is actually beneficial for humanity, and we can break away from what we were designed to be by the powers that be. I hope that happens within Black Lives Matter. You have to have hope for everything. You got to have hope. I hope that happens. There's got to be hope. Let's take a call. 321, you're on the air. What's going on?
Frank.
Hey.
That was a great interview.
Well, thank you, Pat.
Art Bell and George Norrie got nothing on you, my friend.
Oh, well, that's a very high compliment.
Yeah. Well, you're a great interviewer, but especially with somebody in the music business, too. That was great. Another thing, just Kamala Harris, I almost feel bad for her. She's got to be running for her life right now. She was a border czar. Give me a break. They put that on her. And imagine if she got Obama on a ticket behind her or a Hillary Clinton. Just don't vacation in Arkansas, please.
Yeah.
You got to be running for life. I'm going to let you go, brother.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Patrick, for the compliment and for the comment. As whoever she picks, whoever is picked for her, we'll see. I've already started seeing the Mayor Pete stuff floating around. That would make sense. But feeling bad for her? Man, no, this is what D girls like that dream of. That they are, this is what they go and climb the greased pole for. They want the ham, you know? So I wouldn't feel bad for them. Don't feel bad. Feel bad for us. We're the ones that have to suffer through it. And we have to suffer through the people who think this is all legitimate. 504, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Frank. It's Linda. How you doing tonight?
Great to have you on, Linda.
Thank you. So, first off, I have to say thank you again. I started tuning into your show some months back, have gotten to speak with you on your show. Wanted to let you know that my friends and family absolutely love you, and they are regular viewers, as so am I, and your show never disappoints. And in terms of the Right Said Fred, again, another outstanding interview. And I absolutely love what he said about art imitating life, because whether it's writing a song or any type of art that is created, when it imitates life, it is in its most pure, beautiful, authentic form. And that's all I wanted to say tonight. But also, one other thing. I love their truth, and I love the whole thing about artists actually speaking out. And yes, whatever happened to people being able to think for themselves. So once again, over and over again, your show is more and more refreshing. And I just thank you so much for this amazing show that you present to us.
I appreciate that in a lot of ways, Linda, because I work tirelessly but lovingly over this, and I'm glad to hear that kind of feedback, because then it just, okay, mission accomplished, and I want to go out there and do it again. And please send a personal bushel of love to all your friends and family over there, and I hope they call in and get through again one day too. For someone who's only been watching for a few months, you've gotten through a couple of times, and that is a very high success rate compared to everybody else.
I know that's pretty amazing, and I'm pretty excited about that. And I've told like tons of friends, tons of family, all of my musician friends as well that I work with. They're like, "Oh my God, it's so cool," because Frank's also a musician. So they're vibing on you, and we all are. And it's, when I get home from work, it is so mega cool. Of course, you being in New York, I think you're an hour ahead of New Orleans time. But again, I just have to say thank you, because it's an outstanding show.
Well, thanks again, Linda, and I hope that it gets better and better for you as a viewer. I'm not going to stop until it does. It does, and I'm always bringing people on to work with me on new ideas and making it better. There's a lot of things there, art imitating life. So you can say, okay, well, what is that? Now, I always remember this. I'm wondering, there's probably something to link to really define the generational sound. Like I asked them, if you go throughout the 20th century, oh, that's from the 1920s. That's from the 1920s. You got that kind of Eddie Cantor kind of feel. You start going into the 1930s, into the 40s, and you got the big band and all that. You could see things going on. You understand what the style was. The music correlated with the style, correlated with the lifestyle, and also the fashion, everything. You can actually see these things as well as hear them. And the 90s, very distinct. Early 2000s, I definitely got that. I can feel that too. But there's definitely a sound somewhere. It is a little bit more electronic. It is a new type of melody. There's a lot of harmony and melody in this. It is very moody though. And I would say that this would be one of those things where you can say, well, art is imitating life right there. I said there's a very brooding sense of doom in a lot of the work is that's out there. Now separate yourself from the top 100, because anything that has enough power behind it to get onto the radio, that's something altogether. And you remember, I think that was one of the greatest points in the interview is when Fred was talking about their dealings with a top talent agency in the United States in the 90s sometime, and pretty much talking about the CIA, their involvement in the whole thing, about what the message they have to push out, what is good, what isn't good. We already know that the government, especially on any kind of a movie set that is talking about sensitive subject matter, we know on Independence Day and usually any alien kind of film, there's always some sort of a military attaché there or whatever the hell it is. But to hear that coming from Fred about the CIA and the talent agency and saying this is, the type of message we have to push and this is what the program is that we're running and all that, that's some pretty profound stuff. And I left the door open for him to, get into any more of that. But I've heard that from a lot of people, and hopefully I can get more interviews like that on the air where people just kind of let those things out there, because especially for the younger, more unestablished artists that are coming up, that are being groomed as, proteges for the next generation of artists, the stable of artists that they're about to put out there, that they're all getting that as base programming. Base programming. The choir girls in, the mega pop stars who started off as choir girls, that's particular particularly a trophy for them. All right, so what else we have? There's that. Oh, I guess the other thing I was going to say there too is, for art imitating life, it's not necessarily a bad thing for music to be moody and music to be brooding and all the other stuff. I listen to a lot of music that has kind of like a dark atmospheric edge to it that puts me into a gray zone. I like being in that gray zone because I can go in, especially when I need to be creative. I like putting on music that gets me in the gray, because from there anything can happen. There's the dark. There's some dark shit when you just want to feel that spookiness. But then there's the light. But if that's what you're feeling, then that's fine. It should be a reflection of the artist. You want to know what the hell's going on there. And also, if you start seeing that is what a generation of musician is producing more and more, you just start wondering, why the hell are more people feeling this down? So it is a reflection, because as you go through those, those decades again, you can see the mood lifting, falling. You can go and match that up to what's going on socially, what's going on economically, everything. And it's like this big orchestra, music and non-music. And as far as people like Bruce Springsteen going out there and sharing their opinion, yeah, do we think his opinion is a good one? No, it's retarded. He's a retard. I'm speaking clinically here. There's retardation has occurred. Done. He stopped developing. He went backwards. That's all it is. Now, I don't want him to shut up. When I hear Fred and Richard go off tonight, we say, man, based, awesome, refreshing to hear that. But someone on the left might be like, you know what? Stick to your I'm too sexy and shut the fuck up. We don't want to hear it. Is that not exactly what we say to them? So it's great that everybody has a voice. It's great when somebody lands on something that actually has some logical consistency. And it's sad when you hear something really retarded coming out of somebody's mouth that you used to enjoy, because it really impacts the way that you enjoy their art. And when push comes to shove, you just got to be okay with the separation, because the choice is there for everybody. And I tend to think that by rejecting what everybody in this audience doesn't really match up and agree on everything. But I think what we do agree on is what we reject, what is anti-human, what is anti-liberal in the sense of liberty. I think that what we reject is good enough. And that's what other people embrace. That's the whole thing. All right, let's see. Let's take a couple more calls. 905, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi there.
Michelle?
Yes.
What's up?
I'm calling in from Ontario, Canada. I just want to tell you that I discovered your show about a year ago, and I've been hooked ever since. Thank you very much for the mental straightening.
If I could be a mental straightener, then that's something beyond I ever intended. Thank you so much for that, Michelle. What's your favorite aspect of the show? A favorite kind of topic night? Do you just not care, or do you like the more?
No. I sort of like the aspects of everything. I really appreciate your show tonight with Right Said Fred. I had seen an interview with them on Gareth Ike's show, and I thought it was quite brilliant. And I've just sort of been going down the rabbit hole since COVID and being trapped here in China now. I was, when I found your show, I went, oh my God, there's other people like me out there, and I'm not just trapped here in my own little bubble.
Nope. And that's the best part about the circumventing of the one source of state-sponsored information that we were talking about in this episode tonight, is that, there's a lot of...
Absolutely. And here in Canada, Trudeau's blocked down all the news. So we can't even get news.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I know. We saw those headlines out of Canada, how Trudeau and his side of things over there continues to make more and more investments into the news over there. So they're like, it's truly state-sponsored news. That's where the funding is coming from.
Absolutely. That's what's going on, and it's getting worse by the minute. And the bills that are going through here, Trudeau now has a bill on the line that is basically like pre-crime. If someone suspects you of committing a hate act, they can call in and they're going to set up a new unit and you can get prosecuted before you've even done anything. And I'm like, if I fly down and come through the Mexican border, can I come across, please?
Yeah, I know.
And get it for free? Because, like, can you take in some Canadians here? Because we're at our wit's end. And this guy's got to go. Like, people have had it.
It would be interesting. It really would be interesting to run an experiment like that. Like, Michelle, if you can gather about 50 or so of your family and friends who really want to get out of Canada and just get down to Mexico, cross the border, and claim asylum.
Yeah. Do you think that would work for us, or do you think we get shoved out the back door?
I tend to think that you and your family would not be given a block of rooms at the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City.
No, we're like, first generation British immigrants, and can be. So I don't see that working for us.
I don't think so either. But you know what? We'll find some other way. We will. Thank you for the call, Michelle.
No problem. You have a good night, and thank you very much for all your hard work.
Well, make sure this is not the last time you call me, especially before November, because it's going to be good to have your input.
Absolutely.
Okay, take care. There you go. Shit. I thought we were done. I cut her off. Poor girl. The poor girl. My gosh. Oh, and speaking about, state-sponsored this and that, if you think that all of the money that is coming in, if you don't think that most, I should say, again, just a gut feeling, I've got no evidence, it's an opinion, it's a theory. If you don't think that most of the big money that is coming into the DNC right now for Kamala Harris, as if people have been waiting for reason, to think Kamala Harris has had the torch passed to her, and suddenly $231 million came in, like you weren't going to give that to. They held it back for hopefully the right person. Now they're just so inspired by Kamala. It's been you the whole time. It's like the ugly chick from the teen movies that a guy will take a bet that you can't turn the ugly chick into the prom queen or something. It's really, obviously in the movies, it's just that, there's a good looking girl there that hasn't combed her hair and she's wearing glasses. And they take off the glasses and add some volume to her hair, use some herbal essences, and all of a sudden they're just a bombshell. But in reality, it's Kamala. And you can add glasses onto her, take them off, whatever the fuck it is, and it's not about looks. It's just, nobody wants this. Nobody wants this. But apparently, someone was like, yes, $231 million.
Give it to her, Jerry.
It's so bullshit. So what I was thinking is, there's got to be these side pots. You know about the hundreds of billions of dollars that we've been sending to Ukraine, right? Or at least that has washed through Ukraine. You got to tell me that out of the hundreds of billions that went in there, all the Lamborghinis that the generals in the Ukrainian army are driving right now, that a couple of billion did not come back, aside from the FTX stuff, that a couple of billion did not wash back into the country and just remain in little slush fund side pots that were formed over the course of the war in Ukraine. If you don't think that is the case, you're nuts. Hundreds of billions of dollars run through there. You think that the DNC has not been skimming and laundering it into a little 2024 rainy day fund? Okay. I don't even think that Kamala Harris, the people who invest in this kind of game, they want sure bets. And if they can't get a sure bet, they're not going to risk their own money. So why not just take the American taxpayer money by way of a war and then just gift it through a 501c3 that looks like it's coming from you, but really came from So it's all nonsense. It really is. All right, let's take a gander into the gold pills, and then we're going to be starting to wrap up. Cave Toad, hold on, shoot. Cave Toad says, a fleet, that gold pill summary, Frank is gay. J. Jewel says, here's the gold pills. Let's see here. Cheers. Doug Simmy, thank you so much. Witchy Poo, an EMP. Good God. Good God, an EMP from Witchy Poo. Cave Toad sends another EMP. Now we have no working automobiles. Yes, this was awesome. You worried about the Roman salute. There's a great stroke in there now, too. Thanks, Frank. You got it, man. Whatever I can do for you guys out there. Stowstube gifted an EMP now, and now my heart has just been rendered in half. Thank you guys so much. And Cave Toad did it, EMP time. And now Witchy Poo sends it. What are you guys doing? Stowstube says, challenge accepted. Wonderful idea. There is a nuclear war going on in the pilled chat room on quitefrankly.tv. Cave Toad comes with another one. Says, I feel sorry for Brits. They need to learn the difference between parliamentary and republic. Well, the U.S. needs to learn that too. Good point there, Cave Toad. Thank you, Sean Joe. I mean, thank you, all three of you, Stowstew, Witchy Poo, and Cave Toad, for that display of firepower. But Sean Joe with your cookies, and C Blanche with a can, Witchy Poo with a cookie says, great interview, Frank. Esther G says, grazie, Frank. The interview was a breath of fresh air. Prego. Cave Toad again says, wait, Frank, so during the replay, you went and beat the skins. Yes. I went on to the set in there. I did some rudiments, did some double strokes, all of that stuff. And then I came over here and I just laid on the guest couch, kicked my feet up, and listened to the show through the studio speakers and just typed into the chat rooms, the several chat rooms. Thank you. The Sentinel, thank you. Witchy Poo, again, Squickly says, from yesterday, Ephesians 6:11 on Trump's playing card and shot at 6:11. Armor of God, just saying. That's a little bit more clarity. I remember that. All right, thank you again, Sean Joe and Witchy Poo. And Amethyst Cat says, hi, Frank. The Freds should be on your show a couple of times a year. Great show. Oh, I'm going to put it out there. I'd love to have them on at least twice a year. I don't know, once every 4 months. Great show tonight, and thanks to Stowstube and Cave Toad for the company, says Witchy Poo. I really can't thank you all enough. And when I say, I just can't. There's just so much to be grateful for. Really so much to be grateful for. And tomorrow's going to be another great night with another great guest. Tomorrow's going to be a little bit more dense, but my mission is to make this accessible to all people, including myself, as far as layman terms go, and really deep medical situations, biochemical situations. It's going to be a good show tomorrow night. And I really, really can't wait to go out there and do it with you all. And then that will open up the door. It will kick open the doorway to Friday. So thank you guys for another night together. And please go and join us on Gilded or the small Discord. There's the Telegram that is always very, very lively. You can go and hang out with us anywhere you'd like off air. And I will see you some other time, some other place. Email me, quitefranklypodcast@gmail.com. If you are a monthly sponsor, you can direct message through Patreon and Subscribestar. There's also email and all that other stuff and priorities and other great universal perks to become a sponsor. All that information is in the description below this episode or on the Sponsor Us tab on quitefrankly.tv. And again, I thank you all. I will see you tomorrow. Good night. And, Dan Huber says, always enjoy the guest. Thanks for keeping it interesting. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for kicking it all off tonight. I almost missed you. Hate when that happens, but it didn't. So there you go. All right, everybody. Good night.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Oh.